Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 144 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today, I don't want to talk about Microstrategy. It's down 10% for the week, and it's dead to me. No, I'm just kidding. It's still 90% of my entire portfolio, but seems to be everyone's darling lately is NVIDIA. And with a chart like this, I cannot blame them. I mean, even just the one-year chart. What was the 52-week high was 950, so it crushed that. And this would be a very, I think it would be a pretty bullish indicator. And of course, there's probably a lot of FOMO. And if they're lucky, if NVIDIA is lucky, and of course this is not financial advice, but any stock that looks like this, that is, critical to the world as far as making chips, this seems like a no-brainer, bullish long play, and this should just continue to go up, number go up for quite a long time. However, I don't do technical analysis. I don't really do fundamentals on companies. I don't read their earnings statements and whatever, 10Ks and all that shit. And so what I do, though, is, well, I've said it a bunch of times that I watch, hundreds of hours of options videos at 2x speed, but I watch a lot of shit. And one of the channels that I follow is S2 Underground, and it is not what you would call a financial channel at all. But in not the most recent one, but the summary from May 25th talked about Asia and Taiwan, and apparently most of the chips come from Taiwan. And it just so happens that China has been amping up like war games and trainings and stuff in and around, well, not necessarily in Taiwan, but around Taiwan. And so I guess if it's something that I can offer, it's a little bit of a unique perspective, because I am consuming information that's criminally underused. Like this channel's got 320,000 subscribers, and a lot of the stuff that they normally cover is like intelligence and not necessarily prepper stuff. I'm not even really much of a prepper, but even like some cool stuff around spycraft and radio communications and lots of cool stuff and better probably news coverage than you'll get on cable T. That's for damn sure. And so it really caught my eye when they started talking about how much of a threat an invasion in Taiwan would be to NVIDIA. And so, and then there's not necessarily saying that it will happen, but he basically kind of speculated that if China's going to do it, and they definitely want to do it, that it would make sense to do it before the election, because no matter who gets elected, and I'm assuming it's Biden or Trump, that each one of those will be in their second term, and they would have more kind of just like ability to do whatever they want, because they're not trying to get reelected. So before the election, China might be able to just get away with doing whatever they want to do. And apparently, there's a couple of other companies. There's a company, the ASML, that makes the machines that TSMC uses to make the chips, and NVIDIA is one of their biggest customers. So basically, they're claiming that if China invaded Taiwan, they could just remotely disable the machines and stop China from getting them. Okay, well, that addresses Washington's concerns, but that doesn't address NVIDIA investors' concerns. And so I actually already covered NVIDIA as far as their options. Like, their options are not interesting to me at all. The premium that you can get on NVIDIA options is just, it's kind of boring. So I wouldn't even trade this as an options play, but I know a lot of people are bullish on NVIDIA, and this is the latest thing that people don't want to or are basically FOMOing about. Nobody wants to miss out on this. But for me, just the risk of invasion is enough for me to not touch this. So this isn't something that I normally even cover. I'm usually just a pure option from an options perspective. But it occurred to me that that I might be one of the few options traders that's actually watching channels that are reporting like pre-invasion indicators. Like, it's apparently China has actually admitted that the war games that they're practicing are literally Taiwan invasion scenarios. Now, it does make sense that they would practice those scenarios, but to come out and admit that that's the scenario that they're practicing, I mean, is kind of bold. And these guys, you know, they watch and provide intel, you know, around the world. They cover the Chinese spy balloons and all that good stuff. And so for them to be talking about this, they're not predicting that it will happen. They're just saying, you know, there are some indicators that basically say China could do it if they wanted to, and if they're going to do it, it kind of makes the most sense to do it before the U.S. election, so that there's still uncertainty about who the leader would be. They might be able to just get in there and get away with whatever they want. And regardless of whether TSMC or ASML, whoever the hell, can remotely disable these machines, whether they do that or not, or whether China just accidentally blows them up, or Taiwan sabotages them so China can't get them, you know, whether the machines are disabled or there's a giant smoking crater, doesn't really matter if NVIDIA can't get the chips that everybody wants to buy from them. So anyway, I've talked before about SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And sure, there are strengths and opportunities galore for NVIDIA, but this is not just rainbows and unicorns. There are some weaknesses and threats. The threat of Chinese invasion, you got to assign a number to it. So if you're, like, let's just say Tesla, for example, you got to assign a percentage. If Tesla gets FSD approved, what percent chance do you think that they will get it approved this year, next year, the year after, by 2030, whatever? And then if they do, what's the opportunity there? And then you use that to decide if you're bullish on the stock or not. And the same thing in reverse. If there's a threat, you have to kind of say, okay, do I think there's a 1% chance that China invades Taiwan before November? Do I think there's a 10% chance? and whatever you think that percent chance is times whatever it would do to the stock price. If you think that China invading Taiwan and all the frickin' machines in the factory getting bricked would cause NVIDIA to go down to what, 75%? So it's like 400. If there's a 1% chance it would lose 75% of its value, then is it worth 1%? You know, do you discount this by 1% of 75%? I don't know. That wouldn't amount to much. That would be like, what, $10 off the price? But if you think it's a 10% chance of this going to 400, 10% of an 800 loss, $80 a share. So maybe this is not worth exactly this number. Or maybe it's going to 1,500. Maybe it's going to 2,000. I don't have any idea, but I thought I would just throw that out there. And since I'm the options, I'm the options guy, let's just talk about at the money puts. You could get 1% of 1,100 would be 11. So you could get 2.5, almost 3% at the money. That's not terrible. But on a covered call, if you wanted to try to get like what, 5, I mean, this jumping around is really fucking with my head. 5% of 1,100 be 55. So if we just go to the 1150 strike, you could get 1% there. You could get 1%, 5% call away. This is not terrible. Maybe I was being a little too harsh. This isn't the worst trade in the world. But I think most of the value from NVIDIA comes from its upside. So since the premium's not amazing, this doesn't really excite me. Whereas my favorite, Microstrategy, even though it's settled down a bit, but 20% call is like $300. So if I go to the 1,800 strike, I get 1% at 20% call away. So 1% at, I'm sorry, that's not 1%. That is 2/3%. So let's see where I can get 1%. Okay, you get 1% here at the 1750. So that's like 15% call away value versus 5% call away value for the same premium, for the same percentage. So that's why I sell covered calls in Microstrategy whenever I can. Yes, I'm sacrificing the upside, and it has been painful when it went quickly within just a couple of weeks to $2,000 from like 500, 600. That was brutal. But the up plan is the same as the down plan, and I just thought it might be timely to cover NVIDIA before the election in case the unthinkable happens, and at least I won't have to wish that I didn't at least sound the alarm bell on this and put this on people's radars. So, all right, I think I'll leave it there. Follow S2 Underground. Otherwise, what are you doing with your life? All right, be good, y'all.